Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're doing another pedal demo, but this one's a little different than anything I've done before because I finally got a pedal sent to me to demo. So it's a new pedal coming out by Pladask Elektrisk, and it's called the ETTERSLEP. So the ETTERSLEP is a 3-algorithm crazy sound making pedal, and it has a lot of knobs and a lot of switches on it, and it is definitely something that makes a lot of different noises. So I'd love to show this to you and let you know what I think about it. Before we get started, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And otherwise, let's dive in. I'm going to show you the controls, I'm going to show you the algorithms, and I'll let you hear what the pedal sounds like. So let's go.
Now, if you've owned Pladask pedals in the past, some of these controls are going to look a little familiar to you. I wish I could just go over this pedal in a clockwise fashion. That's not going to happen on this one. So we'll just kind of start with the easiest controls first. And I am going to go in a kind of reverse snake formation. Make of that what you will. So let's start out with the vol knob, which is volume. And obviously it goes 0 to 100. So unity volume is about at noon. You can get about 16 dB of extra gain if you peg that knob. So next to that is the right toggle switch, and that is married to the right foot switch. So the right foot switch bypasses the pedal. The right toggle switch sets the bypass mode of the pedal. So there's 3 options you have. You have true, which is true bypass. You have gate, which is true bypass, with the addition of clearing the delay memory when the pedal is bypassed. And then finally you have trail, which is a buffered bypass with trails. The clock knob sets the DSP clock frequency, and I feel like I've talked about the clock knob on a lot of pedals lately. It basically sets the sample rate, the delay memory size, and also the rate of various other parameters. Remember, this pedal has 3 algorithms, so it's going to do some different things depending on what algorithm you have it set to. Also, if you turn this while you're playing it, you're going to pitch shift the audio. It's currently stored in the delay memory. So let me just quickly let you hear that. So next we have the control toggle, and this is going to set what the expression pedal controls. And that expression setting is going to override the controls on the pedal. So there's 3 knobs that you can control with an expression pedal, and that is the clock knob, P1 or P2. Now the modulation knob obviously turns on and off the modulation, and I'm going to kick that in once we start messing around with the modes and the patches, but I think it's pretty obvious what that does. Okay, P1 and P2. Let's get into that. Now the ETTERSLEP has 3 algorithms or patches, and each of these algorithms has 2 parameters that can be controlled or edited. So P1 is parameter 1 and P2 is parameter 2. Now, if you look to the right of each of those knobs, you're going to see that the parameter is labeled, and it's different depending on what algorithm you have the pedal set to. So, the top one is 1, middle one is 2, bottom one is 3, right? So basically at any time, depending on what algorithm the pedal is set to, you can tell what the P knobs are actually going to do. I really like this design decision because it means you don't have to look at the manual quite as often. Okay, I'm going to run a little audio for this section. The mix knob goes full dry to full wet. So that's really handy to kind of dial in your preferred sound. And then the tone knob does basically a flat response at noon, and it'll emphasize the low frequencies when you turn it left, and it'll emphasize the high frequencies when you turn it right. So let's hear that. flat response at the top. And now we're going to talk about the program toggle. So this sets the algorithm that the pedal is going to give you. And the ETTERSLEP has 3 of them. So there is grain, which is a granular synth. There's TDL, which means tapped delay line effect. And then tape, which is a variable sample playback, kind of like a tape machine. So the feed knob, so feed means positive feedback. It's going to create feedback across parts of the algorithm. Think of this as running processed audio back into the processor for reprocessing, and then keep doing that over and over again. So it's like an additive feedback. So I hope that makes sense. So you take audio, you process it, and then you take the result and you process that, and you do this over and over and over again. That is my understanding of what this knob does. Now, the character of this feedback is going to be dependent, obviously, on the algorithm you're in, as well as how you have P1, P2, and tone set. This can get out of control in a very, very crazy way and in a nasty way, so you have to be careful with this knob. If you have your amp, say, turned off or on standby, and then you just have some guitar noise running into this pedal and you have the feedback knob turned up, when you kick on your amp, you're going to get this nasty, nasty, loud squeal from the feedback that's just oscillated itself and gone crazy. So let's listen to this. I'm going to turn the mix all the way up so you can only hear the feedback. You probably already heard that clipping. That was fast. So let's now talk about the left toggle and the left foot switch and the loop knob. All 3 are very closely related. So loop adds looping feedback. This decides how long any incoming audio is going to be processed by the algorithm. I like to think of loop as a repeats control on a delay. That helps me conceptualize it a little bit, even though I'm not sure that's absolutely accurate. It's kind of tricky. I struggle with some of these concepts a little bit. So let me try to show you what that does. I'm going to run some audio. I have a loop going from a looper pedal, not loop as in that knob. Okay, I have the pedal on. I'm going to crank the mix so we can really hear it. So you're hearing what the pedal is doing to the audio. Now we're going to turn up loop. Now on this particular algorithm, we're getting this kind of repeat thing going on with it. I'm sure you can hear that. If you turn this knob to 3 o'clock, the audio will be processed continuously. And then if you max this, it will block new audio content from entering the delay memory, both through the audio input and through the feedback path. So when you max it, you're basically blocking anything from adding to this audio that's looping. Does that make sense? Now the left toggle determines what the left foot switch actually does when activated. So it's similar to the right toggle switch and the right foot switch. The left toggle switch says this is what the left foot switch is going to do when you press it. I hope that makes sense. There are 3 states that you can choose for this. The loop with a box means loop is maxed out, but new audio cannot be added to it. So what happens is it effectively jumps the loop knob from wherever it is all the way to 100. So in other words, let me show you this. I'm going to run some audio. So I have the loop, let's say here. So we're getting some looping feedback. I have the toggle set all the way up. So when I hit this foot switch, it's the equivalent of me turning this knob, boom, all the way to 100. So it kind of locks it in place. Now, loop with no box around it is maxed loop, but where audio can still be added. So think of this as turning the loop knob to 3 p.m. So that means, remember, it's not protected from new audio being added, so it can start getting crazy. So now that I have it turned off, the loop setting went back to where the knob is. Now, when the left toggle switch is set to feed, that means it's going to control this feedback parameter. So here's what happens. So if we have this set to feed and this foot switch is off, the amount of feedback is not set by the knob anymore. It's set by an internal dip switch, which I'm pretty sure is set to 0 or very, very low. So let's listen to what happens here. I'm going to turn loop almost off too. So if feed was not set to this on the toggle, and we just went here, okay? You heard what was happening. The feedback is starting to go crazy and override all the sound like the feedback knob normally does. But when this is set to feed, we can crank this and it won't go to that setting until we hit that switch there. Now, these switches are momentary also, so I can hold it down and take it off. And I feel like that's a really great purpose for this setting, is that you can have the feedback set to do something very, very crazy and nasty, and then as you're playing, see, I let it get out of control just with the loop knob. But feedback is still set at 0 or almost 0, right? Not anymore. So now we're going to tackle the fun stuff. We're going to do the first algorithm now, which is grain. So grain, and let me set that switch for that. Grain is a granular synth. It's similar to what you'd find in the Fabricat. It lets you scrub, stretch, and shuffle incoming audio. So I'm going to set the pedal up in a very basic way so we can kind of explore what this does. So I'm keeping the modulation off. I'm keeping the clock at noon. Volume and mix, I'll keep those at noon. P1 and P2, let's just set them for noon. Why not? Feedback, we're going to turn it off. And let's turn off loop. And why not tone noon? There we go. Let's play some audio and hear what this sounds like just out of the gate. I'm going to crank the mix so you can hear what it's doing to the audio. That's the raw audio. Okay. Now, P1 is move and P2 is mode. That's what those knobs do. Now, right off the bat, I want to say that the mode knob decides the function of the mood knob. So if the mode knob is counterclockwise from noon. That means the move knob is deciding the time stretch, movement, speed, and direction. And the move knob then is reverse playback from 0 to noon. Noon is freeze, and then noon to 100 is forward playback. Okay, that sounds very confusing, but it's not that bad once you start playing with the pedal and get familiar with it a little bit. Now, if mode is clockwise from noon, the move knob lets you scrub through the audio manually. Also, okay, let's stop there and so this algorithm basically has a couple of modes within it. It's probably the most complicated one on this pedal. So we're gonna go with the mode knob, and we're gonna turn it counterclockwise. So since we're doing that, that means that the move knob is deciding the time stretch, movement, speed, and direction. Let's crank the mix so you can really hear it. So that's reverse playback. That's freeze. And this is forward playback. Now, you can hear there's range within this, okay? So let's say we want to reverse the playback. If we go all the way to 0 on the move knob, it's reversing the playback and it's playing at regular speed. But as we get closer to noon, which is a freeze, you can hear what the grains are doing. The little chopped up bits are faster. And then all the way at the top, it's very frozen. And then if you go this way, the grains almost make this sound like a tremolo. Oh, you know what we should do? Let's listen to the modulation. This is a great example of how cool this pedal is. Now, it's complicated in this mode especially. But this mode is very much, in my opinion, a sandbox mode where you just start screwing around with these things, mess around with the knobs, and you're going to find some cool shit. Let's crank the, or actually let's diminish the clock. Okay, let's reverse it. Let's kick in some feedback. And let's not do that anymore because we're about to clip the heck out of it. Now, let's calm the pedal down. You go back to sleep. You go to sleep there. There we go. Okay. So once again, the mode knob will change kind of what this algorithm does depending on what side it is set to. So if the mode knob is clockwise from noon, then suddenly the move knob lets you scrub through the audio manually. So this is really more of a live performance setting, in my opinion. This is one of those moments where where you're turning this knob, scrubbing through the audio. That's where you can really hear the scrubbing. I'm afraid to turn on the feedback, but let's do it. It's gonna get crazy very quickly. So this is a complicated set of controls. It's very easy to forget what does what here. But I also think of this as one of those sandbox modes where you just turn it on and you just find something cool with the P1 and the P2, integrate it with everything else. So I've reset the pedal for the next algorithm, which is TDL. That stands for tapped delay line. This is a delay with many outputs, and that means that it makes a bunch of unnatural delay effects. So we have the pedal set up in a kind of standard way here. I'm sure you can hear that. I'm sure you can hear those little repeats there. So let's talk about what the P knobs do. So P1 is shape, and that goes between 3 different shapes you can have. So at minimum, it's a fade out delay shape. At noon, it's more of a flat delay shape like a gated reverb. So let me let you hear that. And then when you max it, you get more like a reverse reverb type. It fades in. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. Now, P2 is verb. So this adjusts the composition and the processing of the delay outputs. I like to think of this as the smear setting more than anything else. So when you set it to 0, and actually I'm going to reset this to kind of a more standard one. When you set to 0, you get like a doubled tap intensity. At noon, it's more normal. And then when you max it, it's more smeared. So it's more like a reverb. Now, we have to remember we have a couple other knobs here that are important. One is the loop. We also have the clock knob. So I'm trying to dry hit the guitar so you can hear what the clock knob does. So let's go for, I guess, the most smeared reverse reverb we can get. So I'm going to play a loop so we can play around a bit. Let's add some modulation. It's a really good way to hear how the loop interacts with this one. So you can hear the loop is still doing that kind of more repeats on the delay, and this reverb setting is really a bunch of delays. Let's dial back the mod a bit. Starting to hear the feedback knob let things get out of control. Now when we have loop cranked, we're basically protecting the audio in the buffer, right? So you can tweak this and you can find some just nice floating reverbs that you can use. Not everything has to be insane and crazy and blowing apart. But this pedal does insane blowing apart sounds very well. Okay, and now we're on to the tape algorithm. So the tape algorithm basically is variable sample playback. And in this, if we tweak the playback speed, the pitch is going to shift. So you have to imagine you're slowing down or speeding up actual tape, and that helps conceptualize it. So P1 controls oct, which is octave, and this sets the playback speed and direction of the incoming audio. So it goes reverse and forward, and it goes up an octave and down an octave. This is all in steps. Let me show you. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to set the mix to 50% so you can hear the original audio. And actually, here's the original audio. Pedal is bypassed. Now the pedal is not. So there you go. We are reversed up one octave. Now we're reversed, same octave as we started, so no pitch shifting. This is reversed down an octave, and you get how this works probably. Now we're forward, but we're forward an octave. I'm sorry, forward but down an octave. Now we're just forward, and this is where the pedal kind of acts like a delay. And obviously up an octave. Now, P2, the random knob. So in this algorithm, it makes the playback randomly skip around the directions. So you can hear Loop doing some funky things, but what I want to mention is that it's definitely acts more like a delay here. Like if I turn off the looper and just play guitar, it's more delay-like.
So much like all the other Pladask pedals I own, the ETTERSLEP has a bit of a learning curve. And that's just because it does a lot of different things. Now, I want you to know that when I first got the pedal in, I did the same thing with the ETTERSLEP I did with everything else, every other pedal I get, which is I toss the owner's manual to the side, I plug it in, and I just screw around with it for a while and see what happens. And with the ETTERSLEP, I remember pretty quickly I found a setting, I think it was the grain algorithm, and I just got lost in it. And I did that thing where I went to a little bit of a guitar trance for a while, and that to me is the sign of a good pedal when that happens. So I feel like the complexity of this thing can be a little daunting or just a turn off, but I think with this pedal, you need to, if you're in creative mode when you're playing around with it, what all the knobs and controls do doesn't really matter because you're going to find some cool sounds. But it's also good to know that you can go to a manual and, read and see exactly what these controls do. but it's not necessary to enjoy the pedal. So that's one thing I want to get out there, because I know when we're talking about these different modes, it might be a little bit like, oh God, that's too much. It's too complicated and I don't feel like dealing with that with a pedal. So I think with this one, you can just kind of forget a lot of that stuff and still enjoy it. So if you want to order the ETTERSLEP, you're going to have to order it from the Pladask Elektrisk website. So I'll put a link in the description, but please go there. And if you sign up for their newsletter, you'll get a notification about when the pedal is available. And I do want to mention that I hope I have not mispronounced the word ETTERSLEP the entire video. And if I did, I'm sorry. I think I have it right, but I'm not sure. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for watching the video. Please hit the like button if you liked it, and please subscribe to the channel. That really helps. If you have any questions about the pedal, leave them in the comments. I do my very best to answer every comment I get. So thank you very much. See you next time.